Good evening. Welcome to Paranormal Experience. I'm Kat Hobson. I'm your host. I'm so excited that you're here. We are doing our very first ever, and I've got a great guest in here to be doing it with for my first time ever, but I'm going to be giving away a fate because, we all watched, or a lot of us watched the landing, bringing those astronauts home last night. I thought that was so cool. And I specifically loved the parachutes and how they all just kind of came down. I thought that was one of the coolest visuals I've seen in a long time. So kudos to SpaceX because we appreciate you bringing them home. But my favorite part was the dolphins. And this fate is actually undated. And it's really great. It's fantastic because it's got articles by, Rosemary Gully in here, which she and Phyllis were best friends and kind of a dynamic duo. But her article was Your Best Tools for Paranormal Investigation. There's Mark Twain's Mental Telegraphy. There's Alien Abduction and the Salem Witch Trials. So it was by Barbara Luter. And, it's really fun because as we go into we see by the papers, Slender Man attacks happening around the country. Oxford University Bigfoot search is a bust. Ouija board sends 3 people to the hospital in Mexico. But I really think that the visuals on this are so good. And this is probably one of my favorite editions of Fate because I've been able to, Phyllis sent me a lot, and because I've been doing some shows reading, and I told her I needed some diverse topics. So she loaded me up. And I'll also have magazines when we're at the Eureka Springs, Arkansas UFO, the Ozark UFO Conference, Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. So find me, I'll hook you up. If you're in chat and you want to pop a question in, whatever. I know we're having some trouble on Facebook, so I know that we're working on that. So we'll see what happens. But we're only having problems on one stream, but you can tell your friends that we're on the Bill of Rights Network live right now too, as well as everywhere else. So I'm going to just move right into this because I am pleased to be able to welcome somebody that I consider a friend and that I have a lot of respect for too. And that would be Dave Spinks. He is somebody who has got such a background. He's got a new book coming out that he wrote with Serenity Jenny Flack. That's Beyond Mothman. And that is coming out February 28th. I am absolutely thrilled for him. He's also written Real West Virginia Hauntings. He has written Willow's Weep, The Beginning. And the last time I interviewed him, he still owned Willow's Weep. So that's kind of fun. West Virginia Bigfoot, Wicked 46, Pennsylvania Haunting. I have not read that one, but I would like to know about it. He wrote that with David Weatherly. Real West Virginia UFOs, Sighting and Close Encounters, revised. And there is just so much. Cooking with Cryptids. That sounds interesting. The West Virginia Dogman, Real West Virginia UFOs, Sightings and Close Encounters, and the Paranormal Files, West Virginia. And Dave, man, I could just go on and on about your work. So, and you've got so much coming up too. And it's funny because I appreciated you posting in your feed about the things that you have coming. I just, I didn't know that you were doing all of that cool stuff. And hi to Lori in chat. But do you sleep?
Not much.
That's obvious.
Well, I have my last project that came out was 2.5 years ago was the West Virginia Dogman book. Mm-hmm. And I've been really busy, working on some really cool stuff that I never. One of the things was like, I mean, I'm always working on new books. I have a ton of books that I've planned, to do just on and on because all my books are based off my investigations, 100%. Um, and a lot of times I go back to my, like all the stuff I've recorded on video at my investigations. That's how I pull the information from my books. I have to go back and watch, because I've done literally thousands of investigations over my
True.
time. And so whenever I'm writing a book, I go back and reference my video, and I can write about it without missing a step. And I interview witnesses. It just depends what book it is and what I'm working on at the time. But I started working on something really cool, and I don't want to divulge it yet because when this thing drops, I think it's going to throw a lot of people for a loop.
Oh, really?
And it was a project. Really, it wasn't really a project. It was kind of for my own healing, if you will. Something I was writing about and doing, just messing around. And it turned out so good, And Jen's the one that said, "You got to publish this stuff. It's pretty awesome, Dave." And I said, "Okay." And then it morphed into this whole other thing that's really going to throw people for a loop. So that's a surprise thing we'll have to do for another show. But the first part of that's getting ready to drop probably in a few weeks, maybe a month. So, but I got a lot of cool stuff coming up. As you said, Beyond Mothman just came out. That book is based primarily off my 20 years of investigating that area alone. I've done a ton of different, and that includes everything. That includes hauntings, UFOs, and cryptids. Because, in my point of view, Point Pleasant and the surrounding communities, even across the river in Ohio, that place is the Skinwalker Ranch of the East Coast, man. It's one of those type of places. It's got everything. I don't know what it is about that area. It's got a lot of energy. It's got all kinds of different Native American ties. But I've spent over 20 years off and on, going up there, being called by people, "Hey, I saw this," or, them sharing their stories, me interviewing them, and me investigating new stuff that people continue seeing to this day. And I started that when I came home from the military in 2001. I really dove headlong because I wanted to try to learn more about the Mothman, and try to figure out, okay, because there was many clandestine projects that went on up there in Point Pleasant. They were building weapons there for the war effort. They were experimenting with new military technology. Manufacturing parts for possibly the atomic bombs. We know we had a heavy water plant right down in Morgantown, West Virginia, too. So that's all about nuclear power and everything else. And a lot of people don't even realize this, but we have a Delta Force Special Forces unit in West Virginia, too. And around that time, I thought it was really interesting. I kind of started connecting some dots, but they were testing those flying wingsuits the military was back in those days. So I was like,
interesting.
I was putting two and two together, saying, well, possibly people were seeing some kind of military stuff going on with these new wingsuits they were trying out. We knew they had a jetpack in their 50s too. You know what I mean? So,
well, back when Flatwoods Monster was first seen, people kept trying to say that it was a paratrooper.
Yeah.
And, my dad was Special Forces Green Beret Airborne. So he was, they would look interesting at times. That was in the 60s, though.
They're always testing new stuff, especially for the war effort with that thing. But I'm pretty sure, in my humble opinion, and knowing Frank Fashino as good as I do, what happened in Flatwoods was no military straight up, there was too many eyewitnesses. And I'm pleased to say Frank will be appearing at our Flatwoods Monster Con in person this year with a new book, if everything works out good for that. Jen is
cool.
He's publishing. Huh?
When is that?
That's September 13th is the VIP on Friday night, and the 14th is the event. So I haven't announced all the other guests yet. Frank's the featured speaker. because the man spent literally his whole life on one case. I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to the Flatwoods Monster case, he's the man on that. You know, he's the end all be all. He interviewed all the living, all the eyewitnesses numerous times, hung out at their house for years. That he was really good friends with them, and anyone else talking about the Flatwoods other than me, because I'm from the area and I know Frank. I mean, most of them, besides Andrew at the Mothman Museum, I mean,
Yeah.
they don't know what they're talking about. They're just pulling up his information. So I always try to make that clear to people when it comes to the Flatwoods Monster case. You know, and of course, Stanton Friedman was involved with him in that book, but he's no longer with us. So those two there, I mean, Frank dug up the information, interviewed all the people, and Stanton confirmed all that information through his contacts and the documentation. Frank has so much stuff he's never even put out yet. See, people don't understand. There's a lot more to come on this. And, you know, he kind of disappeared for a while because he was dealing with his mom and dad were sick, and then he got sick. And, you know, so he's been out of the loop for 10 or so years. So I finally got with him and we're helping him get back out there and getting that stuff seen, because what he has in that case is phenomenal. People, I recently went to his house earlier last year and hung out with him for a few days, and he showed me some stuff that was like, wow, dude. And he's just sitting on it, you know. So, I mean, I held in my hands the old microfiche film from the government that he has.
No way.
Yeah, from Project Blue Book and everything else.
Yeah.
So you can see pictures of it. It's on my Facebook. I mean, the map he has, I mean, it's as giant as one of the walls in this room. It's an entire map of all the different sightings, all these different objects. It wasn't just one object. See, people are misconstrued. There was multiple objects that night. They all converged from different directions on Flatwoods looking for the first one that was down.
Yes.
And there's a whole bunch more to it, but you know, I want Frank to talk about all that. So that's his baby. So, but I highly recommend having him on your show. I mean, he'll blow
I
your
would
mind.
love to. I will do that. You know, I had confusion because I was excited when I was talking about it, but Mothman was not my first Fate episode. Flatwoods Monster was. Andrew was my first guest as the host of Fate Magazine Radio. And so that was something that really, I didn't know very much about it. Right. So
that case was really swept under the rug not only by the government, by the locals, because the locals were made to look inept and stupid on multiple platforms, and they were so distraught over that they just quit. They just clammed up and stopped talking about it for many years. And when Frank came in, he had family in the area. That's how he learned about it, and he got so intrigued by it, he started doing all this research over 20 some years ago, and literally spent 30 years of his life investigating and researching one case. So,
they'll grab you though.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Close to home, it will grab you.
Yeah, I grew up with it because I was born right down the road in Gasaway, like just a few miles for where it happened. So, I heard in my mom's first cousins, which would have been my second cousins, went to school with the boys and the kids that saw this thing. So I grew up hearing these crazy stories, So I was always intrigued by it too. But so it's pretty crazy stuff, But I got some really cool stuff coming up this year. I'm gonna be dropping 4 different books minimum this year that I've been working my butt off for the last 2.5 on all these projects, and they're just gonna drop one after the other. So some really fun stuff coming.
Well, I was going
got a new movie. Jen and I are in a new movie. It's called "A Haunting We Will Go" with Christopher Garetano. He did the Montauk. He did the Montauk movie. He did. He had his series on travel called Strange World, and then Dark Files and all that. So we're going to be working with him on multiple projects in the future as well. Teaming up with him on a lot of cool stuff. So I'm super excited about that. the Willow's Weep movie is still in the works. We had one production company that basically I pulled out of because they were wasting my time, and it was a major one. But with Hollywood and stuff like that, it's a nightmare with these people sometimes.
From what I understand, yes.
But these projects when it goes from book to movie, I mean, you're looking at, it takes literally years for this stuff to get done, and they have so many people with their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. It's a nightmare, So now everything, fortunately, most stuff is going to streaming first before, But I'm working with some other pretty well-known people who have ties to like Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson and people like that are interested in making this movie out of my book. But we'll see. Right now I'm working with their writer to see if we can. I have certain parameters I must have in the movie. My movies are not gonna be they're not gonna be Conjuring-fied, as I call them, Hollywood-fied, because I want the whole real story told. If they can't do that, then I'm not gonna work with them. I'd rather not put it out because I want the real story told. And
if you've done the work to do the research and get the story there, of course you want it to be presented the way you wrote it.
Of course. And the Willow's Weep project.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 7.5 years on that,
I do.
And now I tore the house down because that place was pure evil. And a good friend of mine was attacked by something, and he recently died. So that's why I shut it down. So, as a location owner, I think we have a certain responsibility. And I know I was meant to own that place, to do what I did there, to tell a story and then tear it down, because so many people had negative experiences there, regardless of, you'll hear scuttlebutt on the internet. Oh, it's all about money. No, it's not about money. Because if I was all about money, guess what? It'll still be open today. And I closed that place down to the public before COVID even hit. So,
well, ironically, there were people coming from Tennessee up there to investigate, and they were very nonchalant about it. And this was a couple of years after we last spoke on the air. That's been a while. And so they were just like, oh, we're going to go and we're going to do this. I was like, you're going where? Then you need to be serious. And, if you're going to be doing an Estes method experiment, you need to make sure that you have somebody on spot to yank you back, because that place is not a playground. Not for humans. It's a bad place.
Well, that's what I talk about in a lot of my books. This stuff is not a game, so to speak. But on the flip side, you could have an attachment going to the grocery store.
Sure
it's just one of those things. But when you go out looking for this stuff and you're seeking out to make contact or communicate, we really don't know for sure what we're communicating with. And people need to realize that, these things, these negative spirits, negative entities, whatever they may be, they will lie. They will masquerade as something else. I mean, I've seen numerous times where they portray themselves as a little kid. And next thing you know, there's people getting scratched, getting attacked mentally, psychically, spiritually. I've seen some crazy stuff in my time. So I even, the Wicked 46 book, as you mentioned before, that's my day-by-day journal of what I experienced in a notorious haunted location in PA that the Warrens were at in the 80s, and all this crazy stuff happened at. And I was part of a team that went in there to document whatever paranormal activity we could. And within the first couple of days, one guy who was well-seasoned investigator, he rolled out of there. He couldn't handle it in a couple of days.
Wow.
I got an attachment from the place, and we spent, the team people that stayed, we spent 30 days, 24/7 in this house. And then the other ones quit. The first group, several of them quit, couldn't do it no more. And then me and the other guy, we stayed in there I went back. I took a week off after the first month, and then came back for 2 weeks at a time, 2 more weeks, 24/7. Took another week off, 2 more weeks. I mean, it was almost right around 60 days. I spent many hours in this house, sometimes by myself, and I ended up getting an attachment from that place. And my life flipped upside down like crazily. And I wrote, that was my first book I ever wrote. And there was all kind of legalities involved and stuff. And that book actually sat on the shelf for 5.5 years before I was able to release it.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So, and the only part that Weatherly wrote was the intro stuff. The whole book is my book. He just wrote some of he did a little bit of research for me and wrote about the community, how it's such a negative area and there's a lot of murders. At that time, it had a higher murder rate than New York City, and it was a lot smaller of a city, so we were showing
wow.
some. Yeah,
That's
he was, froze up.
A little bit. Are you still there trying to unfreeze? Carl, does he need to go out and come back in? Dave, if you can hear me.
There you are.
There you are. Hey.
It froze. But yeah, so that place, I had him do a little background on the area and stuff like that. He was never there involved in any of the investigation.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so
he's a good if you get the
book, you'll know all that, so
yeah.
I took him there so he could see the house one time, but we didn't go inside. It was already sold and bought by other people. So but a lot of crazy stuff at that house. But that's just what that's one of the things I'm known for. I'm known for spending a vast amount of time really immersing myself in some of these locations. And another cool thing is I got a new location now here in
That's
West
what
Virginia.
I hear.
And I actually knew the last owner. He's a veteran too, older man from Korea, and he killed himself in the house. And both of his wives died. All his stuff is still in the house. It's a giant trigger object. And the reason I ended up buying it is because it's attached to property I own, and I wanted the whole thing. And then I said, well, honestly, this is weird. And the guy, you wouldn't have never guessed the guy would have done that to himself. And the reason I bought it, because I was down there on the property, and this was a few months after he died, and he just died in last February. So it's been a little over a year. I was looking in the window, and there's nobody else in the house. It's just him when he lived there. And I saw him, a shadow figure walking around in there. So I thought somebody had broken in, and I ran up there, and I'm, checking and pounding on the door, and there was nobody there. And so I said, And then, this place where this property is too, it's a lot of history. There's a murdered woman on right near that house. There was a giant smokestack there where a man fell off who happens to be related to me, and he died. And then some other stuff. So, and another reason is we call it the Spirit Town, the Shanty Town Spirit Shack. And this whole area used to be called Shantytown way back for all the miners and the lumberjacks, and they lived in these little shanties. And I said, what a good idea to do, because I can show people, hey, you don't need this grand mansion. You don't need this asylum or giant old prison to be haunted. Anywhere can be haunted. And I know it's haunted because I saw his ghost or spirit, whatever word you want to use, walking around in the house. So I ended up, me and Jen bought it, and we wired cameras and stuff in there. And within hours, we started getting notifications, and we're hearing voices in there. We're hearing walking around on our camera system and stuff. So, it's a new project. Okay. The Shantytown Spirit Shack. It isn't available to investigators, and you can go on on my website. If you want to investigate it, you can investigate it. It's a giant trigger object. I mean, everything of the man's is still in there, all his personal possessions, and the chair he killed himself in's in there. All, I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
just it's very similar with the chair thing, like the weed, kind of weird, but it's not. I wouldn't give it a negative, like super negative billing, other than a sadness billing,
I
as
think
far as
sadness is
yeah.
usually with those.
So, but there is some other stuff that's right in this area that's, these things tend to bleed over into each other, in and out, things coming in and out at a lot of these haunted locations. And, you never know what you're going to be dealing with. So always be on guard, investigators. You never know what you're going to be dealing with at any given place. So it's another fun project. I will do a book about it. I am getting teams that want to be involved in that project. They We're going to do a little experiment for all the teams, like the first, say, 60 to 100 teams. They're all going to get a paper to fill out, and at a certain time during their night of investigation, they're going to ask a series of questions, and everybody will exactly at a certain time and do the same thing over and over and over. Then we're going to compare all that. We'll put all those results into a book, so that way we can see, okay, we can kind of look into, is this going to be a residual type haunting, or what are we dealing with here? Is this an intelligent
Brilliant.
haunt? So, just kind of push the field forward a little bit so that everybody, you know, it won't take much time. If every team does that, we can, put those statistics together and see what happens with it. How you explain this team was here in June, and 6 months later, this team, and they got the same responses to those questions, or whatever may happen. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
So
That's brilliant.
it's something fun to mess around with and see, and to show people that, hey, you don't have to have this grand mansion or this huge place. It could be, you can experience a haunting anywhere.
You can be in the woods.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a structure. And, you know, that to me, I'm with you. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be something that's just like, ooh. When I was in Scotland investigating, we did go to castles and stuff like that, but just walking down the street sometimes, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be grandiose.
Mhm.
And I just think that if it's his home and it's where he lived with his wife and then he died there by his own hand,
Two wives, yeah.
there's a
Both his
lot.
wives died in there.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
And
then, yeah,
him.
there's going to be a lot of emotion tied to that.
Hmm.
And, it's really,
And the shanty town that was all up and down that road right there. I mean, there was hundreds of those shacks. I mean, there was murders. I mean, robberies, a whole nine. Lot of bad. It was rough back in those days. This town was really rough. It was a rough town. You had lumberjacks, coal miners. The railroad. You had robbers coming in here. You had prostitution, because they would bring the prostitutes in from Charleston every payday, because that's how they make it. They bring them in on the train, and then there was all kind of debauchery going on with that stuff. So you got a lot of bad energy as well. So,
yeah.
unfortunately, that's what it's all about. It's about those residual energies that are left over, where there's tragic murders, deaths, the whole nine yards. That's, in my opinion, that's what creates a haunting in most cases. Unfinished business creates a haunting, that type of thing.
Well,
So,
love for their home
yeah.
does
And
that
then
too.
you have in these buildings, that energy stays within the walls a lot of times, and it's permanently there. And when people are suffering, they're dying of a medical condition, that's horrible sometimes, and that's bad energy too. Those people suffer, and they,
And then the people that
imagine
are
how
having to
much.
watch them who love them are
Yeah,
having that emotional response too.
sure,
And
sure.
emotion, I'm with you. It doesn't matter negative, positive, or whatever, but any kind of strong emotion.
Hmm.
We leave signatures like, if I touch something and use my thermal imager, my energy is still there.
Hmm.
And I think that, like you're talking about with this residual from this man being there and all the emotions that he went through there, that's going to be still imprinted. And, just like my hand on a counter with a thermal, it's
Hmm.
just stronger because there's that much energy put into it,
Sure.
you know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so teams can book it. It's going to be cheap. It's not. You get it for 12 hours out of the day. You can book it, and it's $300 a night for a team of 5 or less, and then each additional person up to 10 is 50 more bucks. And you get the run of the place. You can even sleep in it on an air mattress if you want.
Is it big enough to have more than that?
No, it's pretty small. I mean, you don't want more than. I wouldn't even have. I'd have 5 or less if I was doing that place. But yeah, but it's got all the amenities. Got heat and air and everything. So people can come in the winter and the heat of the summer and still do a good investigation. And
That's cool.
yep, and it's we don't. I'm just doing it for the community too, but it's just another project of mine. It's what I do. So
it is.
We've already started getting bookings, and that's cool because we want to share that with people, and we want people to take part in this. This whole experiment with this house. Because I think that's cool when you can get a bunch of different teams with different people's energies and see what they experience. If they try the same set of questions and with whatever devices they're using and see what happens. And then we compare it all. I think that'd be really cool. And that's what we're doing with this one. So
how great to have such controls in a location.
Yeah,
it's not too big to manage those controls. I mean,
and the cool thing is too, I'm going to be doing real soon. I haven't decided when I'm going to start this, but I'm going to spend probably 30 days in it and do my thing. Where I immerse myself and do some live on my old YouTube channel that I don't do much on anymore. I'm going to do some of that and see what happens. Just put myself in that energy, spend a bunch of time in there, and do a live every day for a few hours and see what happens.
Well, I think I'll feel better for you doing it there than when you used to tell me you were doing it this week. That was scary when you were telling me about that years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the weep was definitely crazy. I mean, it was really one of those just messed up places that was just full of bad energy, and a lot of people had really negative experiences about it. But I will have a book number 2 about the weep coming out later too. It's carrying on about, it's going to be more about the actual investigations I did there.
Mm-hmm. I would read that because.
And the first one's more about the beginning and how I became the owner, and then started off in some of the investigations and told the story of some of the people that were in there and what they experienced too. It wasn't just me, and it was happening way before I ever owned the place. So, I mean, it's crazy.
Well, what made you decide to buy that place? Because like you said, step by step. Yeah. Because when you were very touched, you were very, you did have attachment to that. It was very deep.
Well, and, doing what I do after doing that Wicked 46 case that we did, and I realized, this is a way to really immerse yourself into the paranormal, because you have a chance to delve deep into it and experience what maybe some other homeowner that lived there was experiencing. It's common sense. The more time you spend in one of these places, obviously, the more chances you have to get information from whatever type of haunting is going on and have more experiences. That's a common sense thing. Yeah, the more time you spend in a place, the more times you're probably going to have experiences. So to really delve deep into it, I think that's something that, as an investigator, I want to be out there doing that, because that's what I do. And I want to be innovative and at the forefront of new things. Going on there like a TV show. That's a TV show. You're in a place for a couple of nights or whatever. That's a totally different ballgame than spending 30 days straight in there. And I've done this numerous times now. I spent 7 days straight in Octagon Hall, 24/7. And no one else has ever done that. Bear wouldn't let nobody else do that. So I did, that's what I'm known for. So, I mean, really immersing yourself into some of these, it can be dangerous too, though. You got to be careful. And not saying that, I even got an attachment myself, and it was not pretty. It was crazy. But the funny thing about the weep is I never got attacked there. But
Other people have.
many other people did. I don't know why. I figured I probably would have, but I had a pretty deep connection to that place. And the day I bought it and it was mine, when I walked in there by myself and I said, "This is my house now, and my rules go." And I never had any problems, which was kind of weird. But I kind of took command of that situation, and it seemed to have worked. So I don't know, but.
Well, April in chat has a question, and hi, April, and hi to Raymond too. But how did you get rid of the attachment?
So it took me several months to actually realize I had an attachment. I first noticed the weird thing was when I first came home after the whole thing, and I knew I was done with it, with that particular project. The night I got home, I wasn't home for more than 20, 30 minutes, and I heard what sounded like when a light bulb pops in your house, like poop.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh," and I looked, went around the house, checked every light bulb, they're all working. So I was like, "Oh, that was weird." And then I started smelling rotten flesh smell and the sulfur smell, and I'm like, "Oh man, something must have followed me." So I did some stuff, didn't work. And then, my whole life seemed to turn upside down within the following weeks. I had a lot of financial stuff, went through a crazy divorce, all kinds of stuff. So once I said, and I was having these crazy dreams every night. I don't know where I was, but I was surrounded by this black cloud, and these black arms kept coming out. And every night they would get closer. And then finally, one night, one grabbed a hold of my arm, and I went like that. And I sat straight up in the bed. I was covered in cold sweat, and I had a tear in my shirt and a scratch on my arm. So I was like, "Oh man, this ain't good,"
That's not good.
I realized, okay, whatever it is, it probably followed me from that place. So I went and
did you own it at that time?
Over a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, I saw. I'm Baptist by nature. I mean, that's my religious background. But I went and saw a Baptist minister, got cleared by them, saw a Catholic priest, I'm not Catholic, got cleared by them, and then I got a shaman and got cleared by them. And within several weeks, I mean, everything started flipping back to normal.
Did you own it at that time?
What?
The weep. Did you own it then?
No.
You were just investigating.
This was after the Wicked 46 case. Yeah, I had already, I don't think I had investigated the weep yet at that point. So this was in between those two things. It wasn't long after that I bought the weep. So probably a year later, I believe, year and a half. Because I bought the weep in 2017. So, so there's still people that think that they'll see it on TV and they don't even know it's torn down, and I get messages to this day. But I sold the land to Brenda's brother. After I tore the house down, and it was blessed and bound and everything else. And another interesting thing, the entire time I owned it, we didn't know this, but when we started tearing, he wanted some of the wood because it's beautiful wood from the 1890s in that house, and you don't find wood like that. And we were tearing the kitchen cabinets out. I helped him, and guess what popped out from behind the kitchen cabinets that was hidden back there? Ouija board.
Get out.
With the planchette on it.
No.
Yeah, so that was open the entire time.
I thought you were going to say a shoe. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think what date was on the Ouija board. It wasn't an old one. It was a newer one. So someone between the time Brenda owned it and I owned it had stuck a Ouija board, probably some team that was into dark stuff. Mm-hmm. Left it open and wedged it down behind the cabinets between the cabinet and the wall and left it open.
Maybe they got something that they didn't like and they didn't want to take it home with them.
Yeah, but you should never do that. I mean,
you should never do that.
And then when I had it, there was no Ouija boards allowed in the house, but I'm sure
Well,
people,
there shouldn't be. Yeah.
you know, but so when you got people doing stupid stuff like that, it creates a whole nother ball game. So
It does. I had a
and that's
client that had a
that's
Ouija board
another
that was just crazy. So yeah, I don't
well,
like
that's
doing that.
another thing, these teams don't realize, they're either naive or they don't care, or they're just plain dumb. They're messing with stuff they shouldn't be messing with. And I've seen some crazy stuff with this stuff. And we try to tell people, look, it's different than a spirit box, because when you're using a Ouija board, you have to allow the spirit to come in, use your energy to manipulate that planchette, right? With a spirit box, they're using the box's energy. It's different. Doesn't mean it's less dangerous, though. I mean, all this stuff can be dangerous. So,
well, opening the communication itself can be dangerous. You have to be intelligent and responsible. But
absolutely.
And some people, I agree with.
Let's face it, they have no business doing anything like this, because they have traumas in their lives, they have cracks and their holes in their soul, and spirits love to jump in and take advantage of that. And people that have attempted suicide and have drug addictions or alcohol addictions, you should never be investigating the paranormal. I'm sorry, because your vibration normally is up here, right? But if you are doing that type of stuff, it's way down here, which lowers your vibration, which allows negative spirits to jump in and take you for a ride. Sure. So,
because they're drawn to it, they know you're ready.
Jen has really changed my life in a lot of ways with that aspect of it, because back in the day, I'd run and gun on this stuff, but I learned the hard way that, hey, you can get attachments, and I got one, and I wrote about it in my first book. It was basically a journal of what I experienced in that house day by day. Is crazy. So, I try to tell people, hey, be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. And especially when it comes to the supernatural world, there's stuff we just don't understand. It can, I've filmed exorcism for a church before. I've done all kinds of stuff, and I've seen some crazy stuff out there, man. I mean, there's, you got to be careful. And, but having said that, use your faith, whatever it may be, as long as you have good intent and a good faith base. I think you'll be fine overall. Sometimes you can feel stuff kind of trying to creep in, but you can back it out of there, with your faith base, whatever it may be. Anything of the light, the negatives do not like, they will run. They don't like it. But who's to say there are no experts in this field? I mean, there just isn't,
No.
And
no matter how much people will argue,
I hate when you do TV. That. Yeah, and you'll see on TV, they love labels, they love titles. When you're on some of these shows, you don't have a choice. They just say Dave Spinks, paranormal expert, and I'm like, I cringe every time I see that. I was like, look, anyone that knows me is listening to any podcast. I always say there is no experts in this field. I don't care if you're Joe Blow scientist with 10 degrees. You're not an expert in this field. Nobody is. So
there are no absolutes. You have to have absolutes to be an expert, because you have to have knowledge of what you can control and what you.
All there is experience.
Yeah.
In this field, all there is experience levels, and you got some that are weekend warriors, as I call them. But I live this life for real. This is what I've done, nonstop, off and on during my working life, but nonstop since I retired. For 20 plus years, so, and then I've been doing it for 37 now. So,
gosh,
I mean, so
we are not aging like that.
Well, I mean,
yes, we are.
When I first started doing it, I mean, you can't really even say it's an investigation. I was just doing EVPs. I mean, but technically, that's an investigation. If you're trying to communicate with the spirit world using a recorder, that's an investigation. So, delving into it, dipping my toe in it, dipping my finger in it, since I was a young man, because I had experience and I wanted answers, and there was nobody to give you answers back then. My grandfather, he was a Baptist minister for 40 years after World War II, and he wouldn't even talk about this stuff. But he'd sit there and preach. He'd sit there and preach fire and brimstone, pounding the pulpit. But when he would say, the old timers, they would say, well, if you talk about the stuff, the negative stuff, the demons and this and that, it brings it closer to you. And I'm like, no, it don't. I mean, it's there. It's all around us.
That. I mean,
Well, it's all around us anyway. It doesn't
people
matter.
still think that. People think if you talk about it, if you're out investigating, if you're out doing stuff, I get that. I get that a pretty good bit. And but if you've been doing there, then don't come here for a little while or whatever. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily how that works, but I try to make sure I don't have anybody with me when I
Right.
go somewhere, you
Well,
know.
it's like Jen
And you can
says,
tell, but you can tell.
Jen will tell you too, it's the Bible's a giant metaphysical book. It
Yes.
literally is. I mean, and there's so much truth to it because it talks about all this stuff in the Bible. It talks about fiery metal wheel came out of the ground on fire and flew in the sky. What is that? It's a UFO. It talks about giants, the Nephilim. It talks about, ghosts and the Holy Ghost. It's a ghost story, He's written, when Jesus rose from the dead, that's a ghost story. I mean, you gotta kind of look at it in a different perspective, think outside the box because it's got all kinds of stuff in it. And you know, it's really opened my eyes to a whole nother side of this. And those two worlds, they collide in the paranormal. They mix up they cross pollinate each other big time. And you can't really have one without the other. You can't have good without bad. I mean, it's just the nature of things. And
It is. I mean, that's back to ancient Chinese wisdom, the yin and the
sure.
yang, the Tibetan.
Sure.
I mean, it does go hand
Absolutely.
in hand.
And
we're making
we
choices every
all
day.
do stuff in our lives that bring the
Yeah.
bad in. I mean, that's just part of living and learning, and it's the same kind of in the paranormal. And any advice I can give to new investigators out there, get with a team that's been around a while if you can, and just kind of drop back and hang with them and see how they do stuff. Then you'll learn, hey, okay, I see how they do this. This is pretty interesting. And then over time, you're going to develop your own techniques. I use
And if you're with the wrong team, you learn what not to do.
Right, exactly. And I mean, hey, like I said,
that.
right. And I'm not, I do not like the Ouija board. Okay. That's just my own personal preference. I can't say for sure. Nothing in, like we said, is absolute in this. I can't say for sure that I know more than Joe Blow who does Ouija boards every day. You know what I mean? But I did on my personal cases that I've investigated. I'm talking about in people's homes for many years. I did the numbers of negative hauntings that I've investigated. I put it all together several years ago because there was this big controversy going on. Spirit boards, Ouija boards are really bad. No, they're not. And there was this huge argument in the paranormal. So for my own purposes, I went back and looked at all the negative haunting cases I've investigated. And and I'm talking, this is in the hundreds now, in the high hundreds. 95% of those cases, there's a Ouija board involved by someone who was experiencing a negative haunting. So
really?
for me, yeah,
95?
95% of hundreds of cases. So when you put that together number-wise, there's no coincidence, right? The numbers don't lie.
No, they don't.
So, do the math is all I can say. You just,
I'm shocked.
find your P's and Q's. So
I am shocked.
So going with that, I'll tell you about a new thing I'm involved with if you want to hear.
I do want to hear.
So I have some good friends that are working on a new paranormal show, and it's called Booze, Brews, and Barbecue.
I love that.
So it's a fun show,
That's a great title.
They brought me on to be their mentor, to teach them how to use the equipment, how to, show them some of my techniques, give them tips and tricks. And the team is Barry Kurtz, the drummer of Shinedown, who's a good friend of mine. The band Shinedown, rock and roll band, 20 number one hits, huge band in the rock and roll world. His head of security, which is John Silverspear, he's an ex-Secret Service agent. And a guy named Ty Sherrill, who's a production guy and does professional barbecue stuff. So they brought all those elements together for a fun show. And what the whole concept is, they go to a haunted location, and then while they're there investigating, they go and sample the local barbecue and the local brews in the area.
Right.
And it's a fun show. It's kind of cool, something different for me anyway. I'm the kind of, they call me their Yoda, which is hilarious. But so I'm there coaching them along on this show, and we don't know where it's going right at this moment, but you can see some sneak peeks of little clips on my social media and stuff. We have a good time. It's a lot of fun, and we've already had some crazy experiences. Let me tell you. We went to Memphis last month, and at this
Well, if you're going to
old
do barbecue.
Oh yeah, that, and that's part of the show. So
yeah,
we got more. We're currently filming episodes, so I won't be in all of them, but I'll be in a lot of them. So I'm kind of hanging in the background. They said Dave, we want you on this one. Come on in. So I'll be doing multiple episodes. I mean, they're already planning season 2 and 3, so we're still filming season 1 right now. So next month,
fun, though.
yeah, next month I'm headed out with them again. So we'll film another episode. So a lot of
What
fun.
places are they going for the investigation side?
All kinds, but you got to remember it's a show that has 3 elements. So it's got to have those 3 elements involved: the barbecue, and they have to make their own, do their own meat. They can't be like a chain restaurant like Sonny's
Right.
or something like that. So it has
Memphis
to be.
was definitely the place to go.
Oh yeah, and the cool thing about the Memphis episode is Zach, the guitar player. His mom worked at this barbecue joint. There's a famous barbecue joint for 20 some years, and he grew up in the place. So he came on and was telling all that story, and they brought us out this huge spread of food, and we had everything. Then they brought in on that episode they brought in the guy who his name's Lee Waddell. He played the Scream Killer in the first 2 Scream movies. So he was part of that, the barbecue part, and it was really cool. So that show's going to have a lot of special guests on it too, big time people, real famous people, and it's a lot of fun, So I look forward to that coming, and as soon as I know more, whenever we know what platform it's going to land on, which I can't say. I already know they're in heavy talks with like 3 big time places right now. So that's something else that's fun I'm doing, and I'm so looking forward to this movie with Christopher. Man, without revealing too much, I'll just say you're never going to see another paranormal documentary like this one. This thing is awesome. I mean, it is awesome. And
I can tell you that anything that you're involved in, I would expect to be. So I have high standards for what I've seen from you over time. But,
well, for me, it's all about the real part of it. I don't care about, that's why the first production company I was doing with Willow's Weep didn't go through, because they kept trying to change everything, trying to Hollywoodify, and I wouldn't have it, Like I said, I've had a contract in my hand for my own TV show a couple of different times for lots of money. And, when you read that fine print, they say right in there, you may have to fake something. And I refuse. I will not fake anything.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, what's the sense in doing that? I mean, because you're going to have to live with yourself when you walk out of there, and you want it to be something that you're proud of, and something that you're not going to have to, walk around with your head down over.
They think you have to make all this stuff like all off the chain, just negative, haunted, scary, and I'm like, look, if you're in a place like this and you're having these experiences, if you tell the story right, it's scary as hell anyway.
Yes, it is.
When you have people that are experiencing some of these negative hauntings they're going through, I mean, they are traumatized, terrified, their whole lives are turned upside down. If you tell the story right and you tell the true story, people are going to be freaking because it's scary, because people do
a lot of times you can't write something that scary.
No, you can't make the stuff out there.
It's just, I've been, the worst case that I ever investigated was a man who bought a Ouija board because he thought it was cool, took it to a cemetery that was in the subdivision where he lived, and opened it up and said, verbiage matters. How you ask the question matters, because he said is there anything here that wants to communicate with me? Instead of, is there anyone here that wants to communicate with me? My
Sure.
glasses jumped right off my desk at that. But you know, it's really so weird because this man had something in his bed with him and his wife.
Yeah.
His wife left him and took their children
Because
because
of
of
Yeah.
that. I mean, and that's not unusual. If you
No,
are
it's
going
not.
and you're asking stupid questions, you get stupid answers.
Yeah, you have to be careful with anything. I mean, I've done that myself.
Well, everybody
You have to
does on
really, yeah,
occasion.
you really have to watch. And I say, it's a good practice to clear yourself before you go in and protect yourself, and when you leave and protect clear your car, whatever vehicle you're in. It doesn't always work though, and
It
I'm just
doesn't.
being honest. But you still should do that.
You've got to put
Um,
forth the effort
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I've
because
been going down
normally it does
I
help.
took off down the road after a negative case. I'm like, oh crap, and I pulled over and got out and did it. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I forgot to do that. So you just gotta be mindful, and be careful and be strong in your faith and have good intent. So,
Well, we have a question again, and that is, what is your opinion of the Estes method?
well, me personally, I don't really care for it.
Why?
I just don't like the method of it because I could say anything I want coming out of the headphones. Nobody would know the difference.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So until they, I would say if you're going to do that, have it set up to where multiple people can hear at the same time and record it, what you're hearing plus what's being put out on the device at the same time. That way, there's a control system in place. Okay, because I could sit there and listen to this and hear what I hear, and then the people out there don't know what they're not hearing what I'm hearing. So somebody could make up whatever they want.
Well, the only time that I would argue that is when, and I have known, getting direct answers to questions that are being asked away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure.
in those instances, then yeah, I will buy that. But only because I've experienced getting answers myself to questions I couldn't hear.
Right. So what
And
I'm saying is you should record, you should have a system in place where you can record what you're hearing on the headphones and also record what's coming out of the spirit box at the same time.
how
That
would
way
you do
you can
that?
go, well, you'd have to have it set up like that with multiple inputs and export,
Yeah.
situations. So, that way you can go back and review it for even more clarity, and you probably get more than you really bargained for. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad system. I'm just saying I would rather have it set up a different way, personally.
Well, I always want a recording.
Sure.
I mean, I do, because I don't always, even just with regular investigation, forget experimentation or whatever, I have recorders everywhere, which means that I listen to things a lot.
Sure.
I'm still not caught up with most of my investigations. I just,
Yeah, I mean, that's just my personal preference, though. I mean, we
but I
all
mean,
have
but it's the best. I think that's the best way also, because do I have 5 recorders that I have to go through? If it's a big
yeah,
house, I do. Yeah.
sure. It's just like with cameras. I mean, if you're in a big place and you're running six
Yes.
cameras, you got to go through all 6 camera footage. I mean, that's just the nature of the game. It's a ton of work, it's a ton of review, and it can be a nightmare, especially if you're the only one doing it.
And I'm always the only one doing it.
That's right.
So, but which is the benefit as well as the albatross of having your own equipment that you want to
Sure.
do your own work with,
Yeah, she asked, what's my favorite form of spirit communication? Well, I use a ghost box and I use recorders. I mean, those are my 2 favorite, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And EVP is my most favorite, though, with recorder, because there's just no way you can explain that when for a fact you're the only living person in a building and you're asking questions and you're getting a response to that question that you can later back up or already know the information that's factual. So there's no way to explain. It's 100% paranormal. There's no other way, no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
Unless for some unknown reason we actually can manifest or put out a response through some sort of device with ESP that we don't know we have that ability or something to that effect. But
I think that's not, I don't think that's ridiculous. I think that does happen. But I mean, my very first time that I ever got anything, I had just gotten a camera and was using it. And no, I'd just gotten a voice recorder. It was my first residential. And I just had gotten this new voice recorder. And I wasn't paying attention because I had a camera that I was trying to fool with too.
mm-hmm.
And so I I messed up and I was afraid I was going to erase everything, but I just hit play and there were only women there. And this man's voice had come through and said, "Is this thing on? Are we recording?" Or yeah, no, so he said, Are we recording?" And I was like, and all the women were over there smoking and I don't smoke, so I was away from that. And everybody just went whoosh. And I'm like,
Sure, yeah.
I don't know. There's not a man here. And
right, that's what I'm talking about. How are you going to explain that? There's no explanation. There's no scientific
I
or
was
rational
so excited.
explanation. Yeah.
And that's when
it's intoxicating, right? You're
yes,
like, wow.
I've never been the same since. And I saw a meteor that night. So that was my first time in a long time I'd gotten to see a meteor and it was random. So, it was cool. So
Sure.
April is full of questions tonight. So she wants to know you're the best ghost box in your opinion.
I use all kinds.
What's your favorite?
My favorite would be the old hack shacks.
Yeah.
You can't hardly find them anymore. And I've had 7 or 8 and I've went through all of them. I got one. And I don't have one that works right now. So I gotta have, actually, I'm sending 3 of mine off to the guy who's going to supposedly fix them for me, hopefully. But they're, the 2120s, I think they're called, but they had a second version that looks exactly like it, but it's not the same thing. You can't hack it no more. So you can't hack that model.
What do you think about that the Panasonic? What is it? The DD60?
The DR60, I've had several of those over the years.
What do you think of them?
Actually, I sold online to Ghost Adventures.
Well, I wish you'd held on to one because I'm curious about it.
I mean, they were cool the way they operated, but you can get just as good at EVPs off of any. They have them now. I mean, what's his name? The guy that made the millimeter. He made some that were really cool, and he quit making those. The RT EVPs, they were awesome. The way, I mean, they're real-time EVPs too that start flashing red when they capture something. And they also had some really cool other features where came with like a 30-foot extended microphone, so you could plug it into the recorder and run it into a room that nobody was in and do a like a mini remote EVP session, and you could be in
cool.
But I've got a few of those, and Gary Galkos, who's created those, but he quit making them. But there's recorders now that will still do the same thing, I think, but just Ghost Adventures really are the ones, and Mark and Debbie Constantino are the ones that really used those, and they really liked them. So it kind of just flooded, everybody wanted one because they saw it on TV.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, but people are selling those for outrageous amounts of money.
It is stupid money.
Yeah.
It is stupid money for that.
But I had like 4 of them, and I sold them to Ghost Adventures. Sold them to Billy. He wanted them. So I didn't, I'm like, because he actually put out a message several years ago. He's like, anybody got any of these? I want to buy them. And I said, yeah, I do, Billy. So you've probably seen my recorders on Ghost Adventures.
May have. But my friends with Scottish Paranormal use that. And my friend Mikey Thompson, when the first time we were in Scotland, we were just doing a private session with one because I had been at a psychic a reading, and I didn't expect anybody to come for me, and I'd had my dad and my nephew both there. So that was weird.
The
So
only difference in those and a regular recorder is they blink red when they capture something.
yeah.
That's the only
Well,
difference.
well, and you can't save because I couldn't, you replay it, and then when it's time to record again, it's gone. And I don't like that. I want my recordings.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah. You
I
have to
just use little,
replay it and record it on another device.
yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's old. That was old technology. You know, those are old recorders.
But they're so cool. I mean, just to play with. I mean,
They're different.
I would never be good with that because the clicking and, I would never. I would
Yeah, I
hear it
got some
once
pretty
and be
wild
done.
EVPs on it, but I also use I still use magnetic tape sometimes. You know,
I like magnetic tapes.
so and they have
But
it
there's,
now where you can get on eBay or many other places, like you can get it where it converts it right over to digital for you. Like you can plug in it comes with a USB. You plug it right into your computer and you transfer it right over to your computer off the magnetic tape, which is really cool.
I have not
So
seen that. That is cool.
yeah,
I'll look for that because I
mhm,
like them too. Well,
yeah,
because it's easier. You can hit where you're trying to go. I mean, you're
yeah.
backing up, going
It
forward.
comes with a flip out USB connector, and you
Okay.
plug the whole thing right in there, and you just transfer it right over to your computer to
I
save
bet
it.
it's
So
I bet it's ordered right after we get off the show. I'm going to go get one of those. Now,
yeah,
this is another question, and this one's funny because I know who you live with. But do you ever research psychic phenomena?
sure,
Of course. April,
yeah,
his sweeter half is. So she is psychic phenomena all on
yes,
her
yeah.
own.
She's the real deal, man. She
She
freaks me
is.
out sometimes. But yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't really research it, so to speak, anymore. I used to back in the day, and because I want to learn about everything on in every aspect of this stuff. But she's taught me a lot about that, and every person has some sort of ability.
Yeah.
Just some people can tap into it more, or some people have had near-death experiences that really enhanced those abilities for whatever reason, brought those abilities out. And in her case, she's had 5 NDEs from health problems, and she already had abilities when she was a young child. So you can imagine hers was just really enhanced, like off the chain. I've seen her do some amazing things that we'll be, talking about in the future in projects we're doing together, talking about that. I mean, and there was numerous eyewitnesses there, not just me. So it's not just me saying it. We have numerous people that saw some of these things she's done and found. She works for police departments helping them find missing people, and dead bodies and the whole 9 yards. So pretty amazing person Jen is, and
And
really,
she's kind and really sweet too.
yeah, she's like the most happiest person you'll ever
Yeah.
meet. I mean, and those people are hard to find these days. Let me tell you.
Well, but
So
she just glows. I
I don't know
mean,
how
her
she puts
whole
up with my cranky Irish butt.
because she balances your cranky Irish butt.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that
So
is definitely a thing
oh
and
yeah,
a big thing.
it's phenomenal stuff. And if you ever have a chance to be around someone that has those type of abilities, there's not, like I said, we all have some, and I've had some. In the movie you'll see we actually had a role reversal, which
Yeah.
was, I don't want to tell too much because it'll spoil it, but it was crazy what happened to me while we were filming the movie. And we got
Really?
proof and we got a crazy EVP and stuff that happened right after that, like during all that, and it's all in the movie. And we were there filming something totally different, and this whole thing happened just as we were filming the movie.
That's
Crazy.
fun.
Oh yeah, it was fun. But
But
yeah,
but
if you ever get a chance and you're around and you see somebody that really truly has abilities, it's amazing. That's a gift from God in a way. And
April does have abilities. That's why when she was put, because she said she freaks her husband out sometimes too.
mhm,
So
sure. Sure.
but it is
But
so
we all, like I
trippy.
said, we all, and the longer I've noticed for me personally over doing this for so many years, that I can walk into a place now, and this has been going on for quite a few years. Like I can feel the energy immediately, if it's happy, bad, sad, mad, whatever. And then I always tell people, hey, your best tool is your body. You know,
Yes.
use it. When the hair on the back of your neck or your arm stands up, pay attention to that because your body's picking up on some kind of energy, and you need to maybe right then and there do an EVP session
Mhm.
because your body's telling you, hey, there's something going on. Because we're made of water, and the electromagnetic field gets disrupted when these spirits manifest, whether it's a good spirit, negative spirit, entity, whatever the
Yeah.
case. Pay attention to that
Well,
because right then is a good time to just on the spot do an EVP session.
that's one of the things that, because I always have, I've got recorders set up in different places or whatever, but I always have one in my hand too.
Right.
And, I think that's really, for me, that's a perfect thing because I do get the sensations and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, who's here? Who are
Sure.
you?
Yeah. That's a great time to do that. And, pay attention to what your body's telling you. And I always have her, I've been so many times I've been doing my initial walkthrough of a place and I don't have a camera running and something crazy happens. I'm like, dang on it,
I
what am
know.
I doing?
Yeah.
And then, you should always have a camera running right when you walk into place, right when you get out of the car, start running a camera because you
Yeah.
never know. That might be the only experience you have the whole time,
I
so
know.
there's been so many times I've like kicked myself in the butt. I'm like, dang on it, what am I thinking here? So you live and learn when you do this stuff. It's just processes of living and learning, and learn from any mistakes you might do for the next one. So there's no really right or wrong way to do this stuff.
Well, I have to do this because we have a winner of the thing. And Tom McNicholas, you weren't in chat yet. Okay, not going to do that now. Okay, teasy teasy, Tom. So,
Dun
sign.
dun dun dun.
I don't know why, but I just got the. Gonna wait. But I wanted to talk to you about your books
Sure.
because you have written so many books, and we're going to talk about that cruise too because I'm really into that. But I you did not just do ghosts because this real West Virginia UFO sightings and close encounters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what all did you do there? Yeah.
In the book, you mean for the book?
What all did you what all did you
So
find
some
for the
of
book
them.
there?
So what I did was, and this really has to do with flatwoods and stuff. Okay, a lot of it. This is where this whole project stemmed from. Growing up, like I said earlier, me growing up, hearing all these crazy stories about the Flatwoods Monster, and then over the years investigating that more and learning more, I realized that holy crap! Right after the Flatwoods Monster incident, the government came in here in West Virginia and built the Green Bank Observatory, which
Mhm.
is the largest movable steerable radio telescope in the world. It's massive.
Is it
And
still?
oh yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know it still was the biggest.
oh yeah. It's the
Cool.
largest
Okay.
that move. They can move it and angle it however they want. It's
That's
all
so
the other
fun.
ones. The smaller ones, they can move those too. But this thing, I'm telling you, it's huge. It's massive. We look about that big to compared to it. So when I started looking into that more, I realized there was no coincidence in that because at the Green Bank, when they first built it, guess what? Frank Drake was there and Carl Sagan. They created SETI right there at the Green Bank. That's where it was created.
No way.
Yeah, Frank
How did I
Drake
not know that?
came up with the formula there and all of that, and it was all right here, right after the Flatwoods Monster incident. Just a few years later, a multi-million-dollar government project right here in West Virginia. So, and
But there was
basically,
nothing to that,
so yeah, no
right?
coincidence. The government doesn't do anything accidentally. Let me tell you. So I worked
more
for him for
quickly.
20 years. I know. So, and the whole basis of that whole project is to search for extraterrestrial intelligence. That's what it's about. That's what SETI is. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for extraterrestrial radio signals throughout the universe. Now
I want to
they're go ahead.
The guy
Go
that
ahead.
runs it now, Seth, is such a skeptic. Such a
Yeah.
skeptic.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, there's nothing there. I said, you're not going to even bother trying to tell me
Yeah.
because
Well,
I'm going to throw the card that you
here's
haven't
the
heard
thing.
something while this is being going on.
They're scientists, and scientists have to have a certain thing met before they say, okay, that's something. I mean, they follow the scientific formula. I mean, that's just how it
But
is.
you know how long SETI has been set up, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that that's BS. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
I
they know
get
stuff that they don't talk about.
right.
Well, see,
I
my
mean,
sister actually, she's a school teacher, and she does the kid program there every summer almost,
oh,
and they take
really?
kids there, and they have a camp and everything, and so the thing is, they wouldn't have built that if they didn't think there was something out there. Okay.
No.
Of course, they also study different things. They're like stars and certain things to do with other suns and other planets and things like that. They're looking for, many different things there. So, but when Obama was the president, he came in and cut all the funding for all these a ton of government projects.
Yeah.
And this billionaire Russian came in and literally donated $10 million to keep it up and running. So, and that's what it's running off to this day right now. But the reason for the book was I wanted to talk about that. I wanted people to understand that because, and also in Clarksburg, we have a NASA facility in Clarksburg, and there's some massive rate dishes there too. So, government doesn't do stuff accidentally on purpose. And if you don't know anything about the Green Bank Observatory, look it up because there is literally miles and miles square mile, hundreds of square mile dead zone, they call it. When you drive through there, there's no radio signals. You can't use your cell phone. They have a little truck that goes around. If people are trying to do stuff like that and they triangulate your signal, they'll go right there and tell you to shut it off because it's all ran by the government because that thing is so sensitive that it interferes with its operating system, And I was out there many years ago nosing around, and out of nowhere, these dudes and camo came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they have an airstrip on there and everything. So
wow, really?
Oh yeah. So there's a lot more than people don't know that's going on out there. But so what I did was I always say, West Virginia is like, when it comes to UFOs, we have some of the most prolific modern day UFO events in more than almost any other place in the world.
I didn't know that.
To me, it's bigger than Roswell in a lot of ways. The cover-ups that went on here in Flatwoods was a massive cover-up.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do with that is I went back and in investigating and researching, I've actually found reports of UFOs in church records because we were so rural here in the 1800s that there was hardly any newspapers. Only in Charleston and up in Wheeling they had a couple newspapers and stuff. But people would report that in their church records, and I found several talking about these massive ships that stretch from one mountaintop to another and all this stuff. So I started documenting all these cases, and what I did was I picked out what I thought were some of the best ones, and I did it some from the 1800s, and then started in the 1910, 1920, 1930. I documented it decade by decade, all the way up, and then talked a bunch about the Flatwoods Monster, the Mothman, all the UFO sightings during that, all the way up into modern times. So, and literally there's hundreds and hundreds of reports in here, just documented by me, and a lot of them are, I've been told on MUFON sites too and stuff, but I picked out what I thought were some of the most significant ones, some of the ones I've investigated, and of course the Flatwoods and the Greenbacks, all that connection to SETI and everything else is all in there, So it's
this is one of your books I haven't.
It's got a lot of really good reviews. People love it. So.
Well, this is one of the few of your books that I haven't read. And
Yeah.
so that one is going to be on the way
Oh,
as soon
cool.
as we get off of here because, I UFOs are kind of my jam. I do paranormal investigation. I travel for that. I love that. I've done it since God was a child. And when I started to do Fate Magazine radio, I went to the very first Alien Con as media. And I got to talk to some of the people involved with that. And, there were tons of people there. The show was already a hit. There, blah, 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 blah. But um, the man who was the creator of that show was really nice and spent some time talking to me. And so then I started talking to other people and I was hooked. I really was because with UFOs, they're more elusive than spirits.
Hmm.
I don't know that there's not a connotation in there somewhere for some of these things, but when you see them, it's really changing. I mean, it really is something that makes you, the first time that I saw something, I was a kid. But since I've gotten older and I'm actively watching now, it's a whole different ball game. And the
Sure.
proliferation of craft is really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll say this: some of what people are seeing are our own craft, and
Sure.
some are not. Um, some of these are reverse engineered that we make,
Hmm.
and some are not. So, and they look. There's very little differences in the ones we make now and the ones they have
Yes.
because that's how far our tech has come. Um, that's just
Well,
the
it's been
bottom line.
given to us. I mean,
Or taken. We've
or
taken it.
taken, depending.
Hmm. So yeah, there's stuff out there. I mean, you know, and I haven't really talked about all. I talked a little bit about some of my experiences in the Air Force and stuff like that in the UFO book too, and not all of them though. I have more that I'll talk about later, but I got I have so many things I want to get out there, and it takes a while to write a book.
Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I never thought I'd write one book, let alone I'm on number 10, going on number 10 and 11 right now.
Yeah.
So, um, and many more coming. These are all, like I said, based off of my investigations over many years. Because I started out doing this live, a lot of it live on YouTube. I was like the second person that ever live streamed paranormal stuff on YouTube. That channel got hacked down and taken down. Go figure, right? And then what I did was just do a new channel and upload all my old videos. And then Google bought YouTube and everything changed, which,
Yeah.
I was able to fund a lot of my investigations from what I was making off the YouTube channel. Because it's very expensive to travel around the
It
country,
is. It is
and you
ridiculous.
pay for your gas, hotel, food, and everything else. So when that happened, they called it Admageddon on YouTube. So
Yeah.
everybody basically got their income that they were making off YouTube cut by 3/4. So,
That's a huge
unfortunately,
cut.
it's huge. Yeah, it used to be like 70-30. You would make 70, YouTube would make 30. Then when Google bought it, it basically flip flopped. So it's like 60-40 or something now to them, and you get 40%. Even when someone does a cash donation to you, they take a large percentage of it. It's a bunch of crap.
That's
So
crazy.
after that, that's when I started doing TV more and stuff. And I was just like, well, I'm gonna, I kind of got off of the YouTube for quite a while. I just uploaded a lot of my, not all of them, but a lot of my old videos so people could watch them for free because a lot of people don't have money and they enjoy it. So, you
Yeah.
know, and the whole reason I started the live was so people could experience what I was experiencing, you know, basically at the same time I was experiencing it. So, and it was fun too. It was a lot of fun, but
Yeah. Isn't that terrible though when platforms just kind of throw you in the river?
Oh yeah.
So
You know, and you can't even unless you have like I think it's 1 million subs on YouTube, you can't you don't have a number to call anybody or nothing. They won't answer your emails or nothing hardly. It's all automated. You
oh,
know,
that's crazy.
it's ridiculous. So, you know, YouTube's it has its own issues nowadays. And they like to censor people a lot too. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I love all this stuff because for me a lot of it crosses over. You know, it's kind of my mantra. Are we alone in the universe? What happens when we die? And are there unknown creatures walking among us? You know, that's kind of my little 3-thing mantra that I use. That fascinates me. It's basically why I do what I do. Because I've had those experiences as a young man, and I'm still looking for answers.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, what about, because we really haven't touched on the cryptid side of things.
Sure.
So what drew you into that aspect? Was it just another side of the paranormal, or was
Well,
it
that's
personal
actually the first thing
experiences?
that ever happened to me. I mean, I was fishing with my papaw here in West Virginia on the Gauley River, and we had a whole Bigfoot experience together, and um, that's really what started me hardcore into wanting answers. What did I see here? You know, what was this thing that threw these big rocks at us from across the river and was making some hellacious ruckus, screaming like you've never heard before? And you know, I told that story on These Woods Are Haunted and Terror in the Woods. And then that was my second book that came out was West Virginia Bigfoot. And what I put my story in there, the real story, TV janked that story up too. They added stuff that didn't happen and got the order of things wrong, which really sucked. That was the first TV show I ever did, telling one of my experiences. But overall, they did a pretty good job. But that's just TV for you. They want to enhance stuff and do that, and that was my first opening thing when it comes to these paranormal TV shows. But and then I put in a bunch of cases that I've investigated here in West Virginia as well when it comes to Bigfoot. And you know, I've had so many cases that have crossed over, like UFO. I'll give you an example. Like there's been many times, and you probably talked to other investigators who've had the same thing. I'd be out investigating a Bigfoot case, and I start talking to some of the eyewitnesses and stuff. And then I go back and do a little research and find out there was a ton of UFO sightings in that same area during the same days they had the Bigfoot sighting, or vice versa. Or I've had cases where I'm investigating a haunting and I get there and I usually interview the people 2 or 3 times before I ever go to their place to see if I can catch them lying to me and stuff like that. Because once you get on TV and then you're kind of known or whatever, like people will make up stuff just to get on TV to get you there, you know. So unfortunately, that's how it is sometimes. But I had cases where I'd be investigating a haunting case where they're having like poltergeist activity or whatever. And I get to talking to them and kind of interviewing them again while I'm at the location. And then they said, well, and then those dreams I've been having. I said, well, what dreams? You didn't tell me about those dreams. They said, well, I have these dreams where I'm floating up out of my bed and I go through the ceiling, you know, and I see these little gray men or green men in my room. Oh, so, you know, and then so
Abductions too.
a lot of this stuff crosses over. So
It
if
does.
you have to think outside the box as an investigator, you're saying, okay, if it's some kind of ET situation, are they causing the poltergeist activity? Or are they making these people see in their heads spirits to try to mess with them? Or are they doing some kind of experiment to these people themselves? So you have to think outside the box when you're doing this. There's so many different rabbit holes you can go down. And it's crazy. I mean, it's like an onion, it has many different layers. Oftentimes you'll come back with more questions than you have answers, you know, always when it comes to this stuff. So you have to peel back these layers to try to get down to see what the actual source of the situation is. And it's just crazy sometimes. But, you know, the main thing is you try to help these people, try to help them get through it. But you can't always help them. It's just the nature of the game.
Well, it is. And, as well as I do, that sometimes people that have needs or unusual brains or, any kind of neurodiversity, there's a lot of interaction spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's because of the neurodiversity. So,
Sure.
they're more open to seeing it. I think that also with UFO encounters, there's also that,
Sure.
because I think that people that are dealing with that are an interesting subject. So
Mm.
I think there's more interaction that way.
Right. And then
So,
I mean, you also have to try to rule out any extraneous factors like, if these people are living near or under high tension wires, because that
yes,
the
yes,
EMF will make people hallucinate and everything else. Even in your homes, if you have stuff isn't really shielded that well, like your refrigerators, your microwaves, they put off a ton of EMF. All you gotta do is walk over there with an EMF meter and they'll light up like a Christmas tree.
yeah.
And
Well, anything built before the 70s for sure.
sure, yeah. And even today they're still not insulated that well. I mean,
Yeah.
they really aren't. Um so you have to, there's so many different aspects to this stuff. The Russians, I looked into it several years ago, but the Russians probably did one of the best, if not the best, study on EMF in humans, how it affects people. And it affects people in many different ways,
Yes.
many different ways. Each person is actually different for the most part when it comes to how EMF affects them. So some people it really affects really in a negative manner. They have hallucinations, they freak out, and then when they move out of that situation for their health, all of a sudden, boom, they're back to being normal people again, not
Yeah.
having anything going. So, you got to take into that, you got to take a lot of that into consideration when you're doing this stuff. You can walk around outside of the house, check the EMF levels to see, because it'll come right out of the ground sometimes. And there shouldn't be any EMF, unless you're under a set of high tension wires.
Yes.
You got to look at all aspects of this stuff. So, and the natives, I always see like a lot of these hauntings, man, they have native connections, like a high percentage, over 80%, in my opinion, have some sort of native attachment or situation going on there. And they always knew how to find those areas, and they would congregate. The natives always congregate in high areas of energy, which is really cool. If you think about it, they knew how to find those areas. And look at look at Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, look at that place. What's going on there?
Well,
And that's how I talk about Point Pleasant. It has so many things. It's got
yeah.
numerous cryptid sightings. It's got freaking UFOs, hauntings out the wazoo. That's just in this little tiny town of like, I don't know, there might be 15,000 people that live there, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then, and you had this crazy thing happen there. So, and stuff still happens there to this day. So, that's a high area of something energy wise going on. What it is, we don't know, And you got look,
Skinwalker. I want to go back to Skinwalker
sure.
because historically, not with the show they're doing now, but historically, from all the writings and the different people that have lived there and stuff, I've been talking to Carl too much. I'm doing my and stuff things. That's you. I am so tickled because I know some of the people on that show, right? So full disclosure, and one of them I have irritated greatly in the past, so that's okay. But well, I mean, I felt like saying, "Were you just disinformation or disclosure?" was a fair question, right? So they did not. But as I'm watching that, and I think back to some of the things that I've experienced around Cherokee, North Carolina, you know, because I wander, right? My husband plays poker. I go wander. I don't go far from other people. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if we're there in the summer, that's easy. If we're there like the week of Thanksgiving, they have a huge poker tournament. there's nobody out there for me to be as safe wandering as I am then, because I'm doing a study on the Thomas Divide lights. And so I have to be really careful if I'm there in the winter, because,
Mhm.
they'll close the parkway. And I've had people come in and like try to block my car because I will film from my car, and I feel safer that way. And I'm
Mhm.
still getting the same views. But it's just so interesting to me because those levels of strangeness, people say high strangeness, it's all high strangeness. But
Sure.
Skinwalker in particular strikes me as being very native in the experiences that were done that were had prior to what's happening now, because now they've gone and stirred up a hornet's nest,
Mhm.
and they're getting sick from radiation, and that's real, and things like that. That's another thing that should be said. Besides the EMF, you have to
Sure.
pay attention to what's been happening in the area that you're in.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
but have you ever, because I know you have Native American history so strongly there,
Yeah.
and also know you travel, but have you found that there's a correlation between historic Native encampments and UFOs?
Mhm.
Strongly. I mean, you said that to a degree, but I wanted to touch
Well,
base with.
so here in West Virginia, we have in the Kanawha River Valley and all the way up. I mean, there's Native American mounds everywhere,
Yeah.
and all the way up into Wheeling, where which that used to be that they still call it Grave City, and uh, the prison, Moundsville Prison, the biggest Native American mound in the country is right there, right across the road from it.
I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, and those mounds go all the way up into Pennsylvania, Ohio, and all over the country, really. But we have a really big concentration of them here, and
We do too.
I think that when the white settlers came in and up in that area, they just basically flattened all that Native American stuff and built right on top of it, and
Oh, that's
that
not
yeah,
that's not going to
and
have
they robbed the
problems.
grave, they robbed and looted the graves and everything else, and that alone will cause very bad
Oh
juju.
yeah,
I mean,
bad
it's a
juju.
known thing, and so, but even some of the mound stuff, the other natives, like the regular native tribes, the more modern ones, we'll talk about. There's bad juju around them. They say that like up at the Snake Mound, and all that up in Ohio.
Yeah.
They said they don't even like going there because it's bad juju. So some of these were, and a lot of those mounds, giant skeletons were found too. So,
Giant skeletons.
yeah, the giant skeleton. Yeah, big. I mean, talking 12, 10, 11, 12 feet tall.
I didn't know they were
Um,
that tall. The
some of them,
biggest I
not
had
all
heard
of
was
them.
7.
No, there's a lot of them that had giant ones in them. And the Smithsonian and government people would come in right away and take them off. And they dump most of them in the Atlantic Ocean because they're hiding history, they're hiding the
Well,
history.
yeah.
So, but,
And that should be such a bad thing. That should
yeah.
have such strong repercussions.
And then same, and I'm talking, this goes all the way up. So the Kanawha River runs right into the Ohio River, right? Guess where? Point Pleasant. So
Hmm.
right there, the two rivers meet, and there's Point Pleasant right there on the corner. So, and there's mounds up there too. They found giant skeletons there too, as well. So, and that, they say that could be offspring of the Nephilim and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
Uh, you know, and no, if you study your Bible and you read about the Nephilim, they were the very vile things, men of renown, and they ate people and did all kind of horrible stuff. So, and even the native legends and histories, they talk about the giants, the red-headed giants that walked the earth, and they warred with them. Almost every tribe has a story about that.
Yeah.
And they said that a regular man would only come up to their kneecaps. So regular sized man. That's how big some of them were. So
Holy crap.
yeah. So if you
Those
do
are,
any kind of, yeah, you know, so again, it's all, you know, it's all related in some aspect.
it is. Well, we live in such a strange world, and so few
Sure.
people really delve into it, comparatively speaking.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
That's one of the things, I've done paranormal experience for 10 years now. I'm in my 10th year. And I get so tickled sometimes when I have all of these like deniers or whatever,
Sure. Skeptics.
because when I when I started doing fate, I started reading more stuff, right? People send me stuff. I get exposed to a lot more. And it's just it's bizarre how much stuff our government thinks we can't handle.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we
Well,
handle so much and they still have such a lack of confidence in us.
the thing is, it's not so much as handled. They don't want us to know the real truth. That's what it is, because knowledge is power.
It
Okay.
is.
So the more we know, the more enlightened we are. Um, they've hidden a lot of the old things that we were supposed to know away from us, because the real reality of what's going on in the world now, it's all about money, power, and control. And when they take away your knowledge of the true things that we were supposed to know, that gives them more control over us.
That's
So
true.
so
It is all
you
about
have to,
control.
yeah, right. And I mean, there's so much information that's still out there that you can find if you do the research yourself, and you watch people that have spent a lifetime doing that research, and you learn from them and listen to what they tell you. Then go do your own research on top of that, and come up with your own decision on those things. But they have hidden a lot of things from us, and
April says it's a spiritual battle.
sure, it definitely is. I believe that 100%. Um, you know, it goes back to a lot of things that I don't want to talk about my personal opinions on certain things on your show, but I just know that they've hidden a lot of things from us, and I know that for a fact. I mean, I can tell you that. Put my hand on the Bible right now and tell you they've hidden a lot of stuff from us.
I would agree with
And
that.
they're right in some aspects. Like if they would come out tomorrow with full disclosure, there would be some people that kill themselves. There would be, because why? Simple answer. It's obvious, right? Because we've been lied to our entire lives, and that would tell someone everything I've been taught my whole life's a lie. They couldn't handle it. There would be some people that mentally would probably kill themselves. There's been stories. Look at old Clifford Stone. Sergeant Stone. He was on a team of people that recovered down UFOs. Right? He saw one of his good friends just when he on the first one they went to pick up, and they saw dead alien bodies in there. The guy turned his rifle and just blew his own head off right then and there, because he realized everything he'd been taught's a lie.
Yeah.
And when you realize something that profound, some people just can't mentally handle that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there
I
would be
do.
some people, but I think nowadays, um, I think a lot more people, I would say much higher percentage of people would be, okay, yeah, we thought that was true anyway. You know what I mean?
We
But
knew they were lying. I mean, I
but
can
they're
hear it
yeah,
now.
and
But
you can understand there's multiple reasons that our government would lie about that, because one, technology, we want to be the first and foremost in technology, because why? We want to be able to protect ourselves from the bad guys, so to speak. But still, I think everybody in the world has a right to know that, hey, we're not the only game in town. There's other beings out there running around, and they are much more advanced than we are.
well, there's other beings on our planet. I mean,
Sure.
and that's what gets me, is because if, with rare exceptions, I mean, we, yeah, I have a platform to talk about this stuff. You have platforms to talk about this stuff. We can bring it out into the open, have a general conversation about the weirdness, and be fine with that.
Sure.
If
Yeah.
If we worked a 9-to-5 job, we would probably have to temper that a little bit, you know,
Yes.
and,
I
in
lived
order
that.
to
I
keep our
lived
nine
that
to
for
five
many
job,
years. Trust me.
right? Ditto.
I lived that for many years. I couldn't
Yeah.
talk about certain stuff because I was in federal law enforcement. So,
Yeah. So I was not law enforcement and I still couldn't do
and
it.
then I was in the military too.
Yeah.
So,
But
but I was still out there investigating, helping people doing what I do, but I just wasn't on a public venue doing it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that they've lied about and covered up for many, many, many years.
yeah. And it's crazy
Hmm.
because I sit there and I still do UFO conferences. I'm going to one in April. And it's the first one of the year. So I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Well,
human consciousness.
yeah. Well, they've got all these whistleblowers that have came out, but they're having behind closed door sessions with Congress. Now, why? Why can't they have that open to the public? I don't care.
Well, it's not because of
I mean,
Nancy Mace.
just come out. All they have to do, I mean, it's simple. They come out and say, "Look, there's extraterrestrial beings on the planet and flying around out there," and that's all they need to say. They don't need to say, "Oh, we have all this cool tech we took from them or they gave to us." They don't
Yeah.
have to say all that. Just say, "Yeah, we know, and here's the proof." Okay.
Well, the best
I mean,
part
bottom
ever
line.
was, yeah, when Nancy Mace said, "Do we have remains?" Yes. Are they human remains? No, they
No.
are not human biologicals. And
Right.
that face was like, know the answer before you ask the question, but you had to know that was going to be
And
the
then on top
answer.
of that, they don't want to admit they've lied to us for all these years
Yeah.
too. Because then why? We can't trust the government, which
Well,
we can't anyway.
it's not that anybody does anyway.
No, exactly.
So, I'm just very excited to be alive in this period of time
It's
because
crazy.
it is crazy, but the consciousness issues are so coming forward. There's really no way to hide from that.
Hmm.
The UFO stuff, again, they can't lie anymore. I mean, they're trying to, but they can't because there's so many people who are who are have there are so many more people right now having UFO experiences than I think there's ever been. And I think that if our government doesn't reveal it, they're going to reveal it. I mean, I think we've already had them over the White House. People are like, well, they
Hmm.
need to be on the White House lawn. They flew over the White House. They had what, 13 craft above the,
Yeah, they
might
did
have been
that.
more than
What
that.
they did that in '52.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, there's pictures of it.
there are pictures of it. And
Hmm.
it's just like, then you had the Battle of LA.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's
I
not
was
that long
just gonna
ago.
say that. I was just gonna say that before you said that.
And we were
But
firing on them.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that could not have gone well.
No, well, they didn't know. They thought it was some Japanese crap. They had no clue it was a UFO. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, not the rank and file, but the people giving the orders the fire did.
Sure.
So, I mean, that was wicked. But
Well, you can't take away the thousands of accounts from the pilots and the crew members during World War II. Saw the Foo Fighter. They call them
Foo
Foo
Fighters,
Fighters.
more than just a band.
Both sides, Germans,
Yeah,
Japanese, and Americans saw them.
yeah,
They all talked about them.
and they interacted with them.
Yep.
So, you know, I just I really think that is every bit as much interest to me as spiritual paranormal because I think that they're so correlated.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the UFO question, that's probably the greatest question of mankind. Are we alone in the universe? Other than, I mean, most people have a spiritual belief and we know spirits exist. Even, cavemen days, they saw
Yeah.
things they couldn't explain like that. And, but when it comes to, okay, we're not the only game in town that, can actually fly out of our orbit. Um, and there's, beings out there that can traverse the galaxy. That's crazy.
That's cool.
That's phenomenal. And it doesn't mean you can't be, your religious beliefs are wrong. If you believe in God, if you're a Christian, who's to say he didn't create a whole other race of beings? That would be asinine to think that he didn't do that too. You know what I mean? So you have
we're
to,
very egotistical.
right.
We think that we're the top end of
in
the
the all
spectrum.
be all. Right. We're like ants to some of these things, so
We are. We're annoyances.
yeah, and I'm worried they keep playing around with these nukes. We might get spanked by something.
Well, I think that's what the Battle of LA was all about. That's my opinion, because we sure didn't win it. But
No.
we have got to, Carl.
Better give away your book.
Huh?
Yeah,
You gotta
Kat.
give away your magazine.
Yes.
Tell everybody, we got people watching. You need to type in #fate for the giveaway.
Okay. Well, we have 2 people who have done that.
Yeah, we've had 2. You got some on YouTube watching. They need to do it too.
All righty. Well, this is what we're doing. It's #fate. Pop it in chat, and you get a Fate magazine.
Right.
And this is the one that I chose for the first person, because with the SpaceX landing, the astronauts and saving them, I just thought with all the dolphins swimming around the capsule that this was an appropriate addition to share.
Right.
And I am all about some dolphins anyway. They're my heroes. I love playing with them, and I've gotten to. So we're going to do the dolphin edition.
Okay.
So, Lori, Gate
Not
won't get
Fate.
it. Gate
Fate.
will not get you a magazine.
No, you got a
So, but just
#fate.
go ahead, and if you want one, pop it in chat and you will get one. But you will have to stay so I can find me on Facebook so I can get your address. I need to mail this to you. I need to physically mail this to you.
Right.
So don't put that in chat, but reach out to me on Facebook. You can find me on fatemagazine.com, fatemagazineradio.com, fatemagazineradio.com,
Right.
cat at,
So
and that's my email.
Are you ready to do this?
Well, yes, we've got many people who have already done it.
We've got 3 in there so far.
Yes.
So when I hit this draw button right here, it's going to go through and announce a winner.
Oh, this does it itself.
Yes.
Look at you being all techie and stuff.
Kat had never seen this before.
I have not. This is my first time.
Everybody.
I'm 63. I don't get many firsts. Let me enjoy it.
Enters into this automatically.
Well, there.
So here we go for the first giveaway tonight of that Dolphin, the Fate Magazine Dolphin Edition. And the winner is April.
April. Yay. April, you have me. Just send me your address and I'll send it to you.
Right.
I'm so excited.
So,
congratulations.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you and Dave get back to in.
Thank you, Carl. And that is why I have such a great show, because I have such a great producer. Carl is my hero. And Dave, I have so enjoyed you.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know why it's been so long since we did this. I love you. I love Jenny. I just think that y'all are great people. And I can't wait to see y'all at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash.
Oh, yeah. By then I'll have some really cool stuff out there. Even more cool stuff coming out before that. But yeah, I'll have it all there at the bash.
Yeah. Well,
yep.
that's my favorite paranormal event. So I am really excited to go there. I love that they support Wounded Warriors. I like that they support, kids with cancer. Everything that they do they've overcome people that tried to attack that event.
Oh yeah.
And they just keep going. They're so wonderful. And it's not just Pam and Steve, it's all of the volunteers. And I just
Yeah,
love
I
that
mean,
event.
they have a great crew of folks that puts that on. That's a lot of work to put on
That
one
is a
that
lot of
big.
work.
So, kudos to them. And, that's one thing I just aggravates me about the paranormal. There's so many little cliques and groups that attack others, and it's just ridiculous, man. Just
It
do your
is.
own thing. Stop worrying about what other people do and do your own thing.
If people would just do that, their lives would be so much more positive and happy, and they would be too.
Yeah.
It's just, for some reason, we don't seem to be geared that way, or a lot of us don't.
It's like worse than high school ever was. I mean, it's ridiculous in some aspects.
Well, I tell you what, as long as they have it, I will be there.
Oh
And
yeah,
I just
it's a
think
great
it's
conference. I've gone to everyone except for I missed a few when I was having a film and stuff like that for some shows, but it's a great cause. I mean, they have a huge turnout every time and do a lot of good things for those two organizations. So
yes, they do.
I'm a disabled veteran myself, so I donate all my time for that too. And I do it for free, and I donate a bunch of books and stuff, and whatever they can auction them off for, they get to donate to the pot. So
That's so cool. Thank you for
it's a lot
doing
of fun.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just give stuff away when I'm up there, and try to make sure everybody's having a good time.
Oh yeah, it's a good time. It's always a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are out. Thank you so, so much. I appreciate
My
you.
pleasure. Yeah, thank you.
And
Appreciate you having me on.
I
Buy
don't
the
want to
books,
wait this.
folks. Can I
Oh,
plug my
yes,
website?
definitely. And he is on Amazon. You can just look under Dave Spinks. You can Dave Spinks books, and they are all right there. And Beyond Mothman, the new one. Go get it.
My website is www.davespinkspi.com. I changed it from my old. It's a lot shorter, a lot easier to type now. So
Yes,
it's davespinkspi.com. Yeah. And you can see some really cool stuff I haven't even announced. There's a few things on there if folks want to check it out.
Well, I'm going to be checking it out. I haven't been there today. So,
yeah.
All right. So
Check
everyone,
out some cool stuff coming.
I'll tell Jenny I said, hey, and I'm going to get her too.
Yeah.
So I haven't talked to her in years.
Just message her.
I will. I'll find it.
She'd love to come on again.
Well, I would love that too. So there's something for y'all to look forward to, because if you haven't met her, you're going to love her. So we will be back next.
Making big waves right now. So
I don't doubt it. She is that person. So we will.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it as always, and let's do it again.
Let's do.
I think you'll probably want to have me on again when you see what drops here shortly.
Well, I would want to have you on if it wasn't dropping. So there's that. We'll do it though.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about dates. So everybody, Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night.